nuestras emociones antes de responder. Esta práctica nos ayuda a evitar palabras hirientes y a mantener un ambiente de paz en nuestras relaciones. Dios nos llama a ser sabios en nuestro hablar y a no permitir que el enojo controle nuestras palabras. Al guardar silencio ante el enojo, estamos demostrando autocontrol y respeto hacia los demás, y estamos eligiendo vivir en paz y en armonía. El silencio en momentos de enojo es una muestra de nuestra madurez espiritual y de nuestra devoción a Dios. Las palabras como instrumento de servicio. Dios nos llama a utilizar nuestras palabras para servir a los demás y para llevar su amor y su esperanza a quienes lo necesitan. En 1 Pedro 4, 10 o 11 se nos dice: cada uno, según el don que ha recibido, ministrelo a los otros, como buenos administradores de la multiforme gracia de Dios. Las palabras de servicio son una expresión de nuestro amor por Dios y de nuestro compromiso de vivir conforme a su voluntad. Al hablar con un espíritu de servicio, estamos mostrando compasión y humildad, y estamos siendo un canal de su gracia en el mundo. El servicio a través de nuestras palabras puede manifestarse en palabras de aliento, de consuelo y de apoyo. Dios nos llama a ser una fuente de bendición para quienes nos rodean, a utilizar nuestras palabras para levantar a los demás y para recordarles que Dios está con ellos. Al hablar con un espíritu de servicio, estamos reflejando el carácter de Jesús y estamos siendo un testimonio de su amor en el mundo. Las palabras de servicio son una muestra de nuestra fe y de nuestro compromiso de vivir conforme a la voluntad de Dios. La importancia de hablar con bondad. La bondad en nuestras palabras es una virtud que Dios nos pide cultivar. En Proverbios 16:24 se nos dice: panal de miel son los dichos suaves, suavidad al alma y medicina para los huesos. Este versículo nos recuerda que nuestras palabras pueden ser una fuente de sanidad y de paz cuando están llenas de bondad. Dios nos llama a hablar con bondad, a utilizar nuestras palabras para consolar y para inspirar a quienes nos rodean. Hablar con bondad significa elegir palabras amables y respetuosas, incluso en momentos de conflicto o de desacuerdo. La bondad en nuestras palabras refleja nuestro amor por Dios y nuestro deseo de vivir conforme a su voluntad. Al hablar con bondad, estamos promoviendo un ambiente de paz y de armonía en nuestras relaciones. La bondad en nuestras palabras es una muestra de nuestra fe y de nuestra devoción a Dios, y nos permite ser una fuente de bendición para quienes nos rodean. El impacto de las palabras en nuestra relación con Dios. Nuestras palabras no solo afectan a quienes nos rodean, sino que también tienen un impacto en nuestra relación con Dios. En Mateo 15:18, Jesús dice: pero lo que sale de la boca, del corazón sale, y esto contamina al hombre. Este versículo nos recuerda que nuestras palabras reflejan el estado de nuestro corazón y que pueden acercarnos o alejarnos de Dios. Dios nos llama a utilizar nuestras palabras para glorificar su nombre y para vivir en santidad y en obediencia a su voluntad. El impacto de nuestras palabras en nuestra relación con Dios nos llama a ser conscientes de lo que decimos y a utilizar nuestro lenguaje para honrarlo. Cuando nuestras palabras están en armonía con la voluntad de Dios, estamos experimentando su paz y su amor en nuestra vida. Nuestras palabras pueden ser una forma de acercarnos a Dios y de expresar nuestra devoción y nuestro amor por Él. Al hablar con integridad y con amor, estamos fortaleciendo nuestra relación con Dios y permitiendo que su paz y su gracia inunden nuestro corazón. El valor de la discreción en nuestras palabras. La discreción es una cualidad que Dios nos llama a cultivar en nuestras palabras. En Proverbios 2:11 se nos dice: la discreción te guardará, te preservará la inteligencia. La discreción en nuestras palabras implica saber cuándo es apropiado hablar y cuándo es mejor guardar silencio. La discreción nos ayuda a evitar conversaciones innecesarias o comentarios que puedan causar malentendidos o conflictos. Hablar con discreción significa ser conscientes del impacto de nuestras palabras y evitar aquellos temas o conversaciones que no edifiquen. Dios nos llama a ser prudentes y discretos, a elegir nuestras palabras con sabiduría y a asegurarnos de que nuestras palabras sean siempre una bendición para los demás. La discreción en nuestras palabras refleja nuestra madurez y nuestro deseo de vivir conforme a la voluntad de Dios. Al hablar con discreción, estamos mostrando respeto hacia los demás y protegiendo la paz en nuestras relaciones. La empatía reflejada en nuestras palabras. La empatía es una expresión de amor y de compasión que Dios nos llama a mostrar en nuestras palabras. En Romanos 12:15 se nos exhorta: gozaos con los que se gozan, llorad con los que lloran. La empatía en nuestras palabras significa ser sensibles a las necesidades y emociones de los demás y hablar con un corazón lleno de comprensión y apoyo. Cuando hablamos con empatía, estamos mostrando a los demás que sus sentimientos son importantes para nosotros y que estamos dispuestos a caminar junto a ellos en sus momentos de alegría y de tristeza. Dios nos llama a ser una fuente de consuelo y de apoyo para quienes nos rodean, a utilizar nuestras palabras para levantar y para sanar. La empatía en nuestras palabras refleja el amor de Dios y nos permite ser una bendición para quienes están pasando por momentos difíciles. La integridad en nuestras palabras. La integridad es un valor esencial en el uso correcto de nuestras palabras. En Proverbios 10:9 se nos dice: el que camina en integridad anda confiado, mas el que pervierte sus caminos será quebrantado. La integridad en nuestras palabras significa hablar con honestidad, sin engaños ni mentiras, y mantenernos fieles a la verdad en todo momento. Dios nos llama a ser personas íntegras, a vivir conforme a su justicia y a reflejar su santidad en nuestras palabras. Cuando nuestras palabras están llenas de integridad, estamos mostrando que nuestra fe y nuestro amor por Dios son genuinos. La integridad en nuestras palabras nos permite vivir con paz y con la seguridad de que estamos haciendo lo correcto. Dios nos pide que seamos fieles en nuestro hablar y que evitemos toda forma de falsedad o engaño. Al hablar con integridad, estamos glorificando a Dios y estamos siendo un testimonio de su verdad y de su justicia. La fidelidad a la palabra de Dios en nuestras palabras. Como creyentes, nuestras palabras deben estar alineadas con la palabra de Dios y ser un reflejo de su verdad. En Josué 1:8 se nos exhorta: nunca se apartará de tu boca este libro de la ley, sino que de día y de noche meditarás en él. La fidelidad a la palabra de Dios en nuestras palabras significa que debemos hablar conforme a lo que la Biblia nos enseña y evitar aquellas palabras que no reflejan su amor y su verdad. Dios nos llama a ser fieles a su palabra, a vivir y a hablar de acuerdo a sus mandamientos y a permitir que su verdad guíe cada aspecto de nuestra vida. La fidelidad a la palabra de Dios en nuestras palabras nos ayuda a mantenernos firmes en nuestra fe y a ser una luz para quienes nos rodean. Al hablar conforme a su palabra, estamos mostrando nuestro compromiso con Dios y nuestra devoción a su voluntad. La fidelidad a la palabra de Dios en nuestras palabras es una muestra de nuestra fe y de nuestro deseo de vivir conforme a su verdad. La moderación en nuestras palabras. La moderación es una virtud que Dios nos llama a cultivar en nuestras palabras. En Proverbios 25:28 se nos dice: como ciudad derribada y sin muro es el hombre cuyo espíritu no tiene rienda. La moderación en nuestras palabras implica controlar nuestras emociones y evitar palabras impulsivas o hirientes. Dios nos llama a hablar con moderación, a ser prudentes en nuestro lenguaje y a evitar los excesos en nuestras conversaciones. La moderación en nuestras palabras nos permite mantener la paz y la armonía en nuestras relaciones. Al hablar con moderación, estamos mostrando que nuestras emociones no nos controlan y que estamos eligiendo vivir con sabiduría y con autocontrol. Dios nos llama a ser moderados en nuestro hablar y a evitar aquellas palabras que puedan causar conflictos o divisiones. La moderación en nuestras palabras es una muestra de nuestra fe y de nuestro deseo de vivir conforme a la voluntad de Dios. la perseverancia en el uso de palabras positivas. Dios nos llama a ser perseverantes en el uso de palabras positivas, a utilizar nuestro lenguaje para edificar y para inspirar a quienes nos rodean. En Filipenses 4:8 se nos exhorta: por lo demás, hermanos, todo lo que es verdadero, todo lo honesto, todo lo justo, todo lo puro, todo lo amable, todo lo que es de buen nombre, si hay virtud alguna, si algo digno de alabanza, en esto pensad. Las palabras positivas son una expresión de nuestra fe y de nuestra confianza en Dios, y nos ayudan a mantener una actitud de amor y de esperanza. La perseverancia en el uso de palabras positivas nos permite ser una fuente de bendición para quienes nos rodean. Dios nos llama a ser constantes en nuestro hablar y a evitar las palabras negativas o destructivas. Al utilizar palabras positivas, estamos mostrando que nuestra fe en Dios es firme y que estamos comprometidos a vivir en armonía con su voluntad. Las palabras positivas son un reflejo de nuestra fe y nos permiten ser un testimonio de su amor y de su gracia. La responsabilidad de nuestras palabras ante Dios nos recuerda que seremos responsables de cada palabra que pronunciamos. En Mateo 12:36, Jesús nos advierte: mas yo os digo que de toda palabra ociosa que hablen los hombres, de ella darán cuenta en el día del juicio. Este versículo nos recuerda que nuestras palabras tienen un impacto en nuestra relación con Dios y que cada palabra será recordada y juzgada. Dios nos llama a ser conscientes de nuestras palabras y a utilizarlas de manera que honren su nombre y reflejen su amor. La responsabilidad de nuestras palabras ante Dios nos llama a ser cuidadosos en nuestro hablar, a evitar palabras vanas o hirientes y a asegurarnos de que nuestro lenguaje sea una expresión de nuestra fe. Dios nos pide que utilicemos nuestras palabras para glorificarlo y para bendecir a quienes nos rodean. Al recordar la responsabilidad que tenemos ante Dios, estamos fortaleciendo nuestra fe y nuestra relación con Él, y estamos eligiendo vivir conforme a su voluntad. La dignidad en nuestras palabras. Dios nos llama a hablar con dignidad, a utilizar nuestras palabras para expresar respeto y aprecio por quienes nos rodean. En Efesios 4:29 se nos exhorta: ninguna palabra corrompida salga de vuestra boca, sino la que sea buena para la necesaria edificación, a fin de dar gracia a los oyentes. La dignidad en nuestras palabras significa hablar con respeto, evitar el lenguaje ofensivo o vulgar y utilizar nuestro lenguaje para edificar y para inspirar. Hablar con dignidad es una muestra de nuestra fe y de nuestro amor por Dios. Cuando utilizamos palabras dignas, estamos mostrando que respetamos a los demás y que valoramos nuestra relación con Dios. Dios nos llama a ser un ejemplo de su amor y de su gracia, y nuestras palabras son una forma de reflejar ese compromiso. La dignidad de nuestras palabras es una muestra de nuestra madurez espiritual y de nuestra devoción a Dios, y nos permite ser una fuente de bendición para quienes nos rodean. La gratitud como una práctica constante en nuestras palabras. Dios nos llama a vivir una vida de gratitud y a expresar nuestro agradecimiento en nuestras palabras. En Colosenses 3:17 se nos dice: y todo lo que hacéis, sea de palabra o de hecho, hacedlo todo en el nombre del Señor Jesús, dando gracias a Dios Padre por medio de Él. La gratitud en nuestras palabras es una forma de reconocer las bendiciones de Dios y de vivir en comunión con Él. Al expresar gratitud, estamos mostrando nuestra fe y nuestra confianza en su bondad. La gratitud en nuestras palabras nos permite vivir con una actitud de paz y de esperanza. Al hablar con gratitud, estamos recordando las bendiciones que Dios nos ha dado y estamos compartiendo su amor con quienes nos rodean. Dios nos llama a ser agradecidos y a utilizar nuestras palabras para expresar nuestra gratitud. La gratitud en nuestras palabras es una muestra de nuestra devoción y de nuestro amor por Dios, y nos permite experimentar su paz y su alegría en nuestra vida. La paz que nuestras palabras pueden traer a nuestro entorno. Nuestras palabras tienen el poder de promover la paz en nuestros hogares, en nuestras amistades y en nuestras comunidades. En Romanos 12:18 se nos exhorta: si es posible, en cuanto dependa de vosotros, estad en paz con todos los hombres. Este versículo nos recuerda que Dios nos llama a ser agentes de paz, a utilizar nuestras palabras para calmar tensiones y para fomentar la armonía en nuestras relaciones. Al hablar con paz, estamos reflejando el carácter de Dios y mostrando nuestro compromiso de vivir conforme a su voluntad. Cuando elegimos palabras pacíficas, estamos promoviendo un ambiente de comprensión y respeto mutuo. Las palabras de paz pueden transformar una conversación tensa y traer esperanza en situaciones difíciles. Dios nos llama a ser un reflejo de su paz y a utilizar nuestras palabras para construir puentes de unidad y de amor. La paz en nuestras palabras es una muestra de nuestra fe y de nuestra confianza en que Dios es nuestro protector y nuestro guía. La humildad de nuestras palabras, Dios nos llama a hablar con humildad, reconociendo que todos somos pecadores y que necesitamos su gracia en nuestras vidas. En Filipenses 2:3 se nos dice: nada hagáis por contienda o por vanagloria, antes bien con humildad, estimando cada uno a los demás como superiores a él mismo. La humildad en nuestras palabras significa hablar con respeto, sin altivez ni orgullo, y estar dispuestos a reconocer nuestras limitaciones y errores. La humildad en nuestras palabras también nos permite escuchar a los demás y aprender de sus experiencias. Al hablar con humildad, estamos mostrando nuestra dependencia de Dios y nuestro deseo de vivir conforme a su voluntad. Dios nos llama a ser humildes en nuestro hablar, a evitar palabras de crítica o desprecio y a utilizar nuestro lenguaje para edificar y para animar a quienes nos rodean. La humildad en nuestras palabras es una muestra de nuestra devoción a Dios y de nuestro deseo de reflejar su amor en cada aspecto de nuestra vida. La paciencia reflejada en nuestras palabras. La paciencia es una virtud que Dios nos llama a cultivar en nuestras palabras. En Proverbios 15:1 se nos dice: la blanda respuesta quita la ira, mas la palabra áspera hace subir el furor. La paciencia en nuestras palabras nos permite responder con calma, incluso en momentos de conflicto o de frustración. Al hablar con paciencia, estamos demostrando autocontrol y respeto hacia los demás, y estamos promoviendo la paz en nuestras relaciones. Dios nos llama a ser pacientes y a utilizar nuestras palabras para construir en lugar de destruir. La paciencia en nuestras palabras nos ayuda a evitar respuestas impulsivas y a tomarnos el tiempo necesario para reflexionar antes de hablar. Al hablar con paciencia, estamos mostrando que nuestro amor por los demás es más importante que nuestras emociones momentáneas. La paciencia en nuestras palabras es una muestra de nuestra fe y de nuestra confianza en que Dios nos guiará en cada situación. La compasión en nuestras palabras. La compasión es una expresión de amor que Dios nos pide reflejar en nuestras palabras. En Colosenses 3:12 se nos exhorta: vestíos, pues, como escogidos de Dios, santos y amados, de entrañable misericordia, de benignidad, de humildad, de mansedumbre, de paciencia. La compasión en nuestras palabras significa hablar con un corazón lleno de empatía y de amor, siendo sensibles a las necesidades de los demás y dispuestos a consolar a quienes están pasando por momentos difíciles. Cuando nuestras palabras están llenas de compasión, estamos mostrando el amor de Dios y siendo un canal de su paz y de su consuelo. La compasión en nuestras palabras nos permite ser una fuente de apoyo para quienes están sufriendo y nos ayuda a vivir en comunión con el corazón de Dios. Al hablar con compasión, estamos reflejando nuestra fe y nuestro deseo de vivir conforme a la voluntad de Dios. La compasión en nuestras palabras es una muestra de nuestra devoción a Dios y de nuestro compromiso de amar a los demás como Él nos ha amado. La importancia de reconocer nuestros errores. Dios nos llama a ser humildes y a reconocer nuestros errores, especialmente cuando hemos usado nuestras palabras de manera incorrecta. En Santiago 5:16 se nos exhorta: confesaos vuestras ofensas unos a otros y orad unos por otros para que seáis sanados. Reconocer nuestros errores y pedir perdón es una muestra de humildad y de respeto hacia los demás. Al reconocer nuestros errores, estamos mostrando nuestro deseo de vivir en paz y en armonía con quienes nos rodean. Dios nos llama a ser honestos en nuestro hablar, a admitir cuando hemos cometido un error y a pedir disculpas de manera sincera. Reconocer nuestros errores es una oportunidad para fortalecer nuestras relaciones y para crecer en nuestra fe. Al pedir perdón, estamos mostrando nuestra disposición a mejorar y a ser un reflejo del amor de Dios. La humildad en nuestras palabras nos ayuda a construir relaciones basadas en la honestidad y en la comprensión mutua, y nos permite experimentar la paz que Dios ofrece a quienes buscan vivir en su voluntad. La integridad en nuestras palabras. La integridad es fundamental en nuestra relación con Dios y con los demás. En Proverbios 11:3 se nos dice: la integridad de los rectos los encaminará, pero destruirá a los pecadores la perversidad de ellos. La integridad en nuestras palabras significa hablar con honestidad y sinceridad, sin engaños ni mentiras. Dios nos llama a ser personas íntegras y a utilizar nuestras palabras para edificar y para inspirar. Cuando nuestras palabras están llenas de integridad, estamos mostrando nuestra fe y nuestro compromiso de vivir conforme a la voluntad de Dios. La integridad en nuestras palabras nos permite construir relaciones basadas en la confianza y en el respeto mutuo. Al hablar con integridad, estamos glorificando a Dios y estamos siendo un testimonio de su verdad y de su justicia. La integridad en nuestras palabras es una muestra de nuestra madurez espiritual y de nuestro deseo de vivir en paz y en armonía. La paz que traen las palabras sabias, Dios nos llama a ser portadores de paz y a utilizar nuestras palabras para edificar y para inspirar a quienes nos rodean. En Proverbios 12:18 se nos dice: hay quienes hablan como dando estocadas de espada, pero la lengua de los sabios es medicina. La paz en nuestras palabras nos permite ser un canal de consuelo y de apoyo para quienes están pasando por momentos difíciles. Hablar con palabras de paz y de sabiduría es una expresión de nuestro amor y de nuestra fe en Dios. La paz en nuestras palabras nos ayuda a mantener relaciones armoniosas y a ser una fuente de apoyo para quienes lo necesitan. Al hablar con paz, estamos mostrando nuestro compromiso con Dios y nuestro deseo de ser una bendición para quienes nos rodean. La paz en nuestras palabras es una muestra de nuestra devoción a Dios y de nuestro deseo de reflejar su amor en cada aspecto de nuestra vida. Conclusión: el poder de nuestras palabras y de nuestro silencio es una responsabilidad que Dios nos ha dado y que debemos manejar con sabiduría y amor. La Biblia nos enseña que nuestras palabras tienen el poder de dar vida o de traer destrucción, de edificar o de derribar, de sanar o de herir. Dios nos llama a utilizar nuestras palabras para edificar, para inspirar y para ser un canal de su paz y de su amor en el mundo. Al hablar con sabiduría, con amor y con integridad, estamos siendo un reflejo de su carácter y estamos mostrando nuestro compromiso de vivir conforme a su voluntad. Nuestro silencio también es una herramienta poderosa que nos permite reflexionar, calmar nuestras emociones y evitar palabras hirientes o innecesarias. Dios nos llama a aprender a guardar silencio cuando sea necesario, a reflexionar antes de hablar y a buscar su guía en cada conversación. El silencio es una muestra de sabiduría y de autocontrol y nos permite vivir en paz con nosotros mismos y con los demás. Que nuestras palabras y nuestro silencio sean siempre una expresión de nuestra fe y de nuestro amor por Dios. Que cada palabra que pronunciemos sea una bendición para quienes nos rodean y un reflejo de la paz y del amor de Dios en nuestras vidas. Que aprendamos a hablar con sabiduría y a guardar silencio con prudencia, sabiendo que nuestras palabras y nuestro silencio son un testimonio de nuestra relación con Dios. Que Él nos dé la sabiduría y la gracia para utilizar nuestras palabras de manera que honren su nombre y para vivir una vida de paz, de amor y de devoción a su voluntad.
If you're gonna quit, quit when it's going well. If you're gonna quit, quit when it's easy. If you're gonna give up at the top of the mountain, not at the bottom of the mountain, not on the side of the mountain, not in the middle of the mountain. Give up when you get to the top of the mountain. If you're gonna quit, quit after you make it work in grand fashion. Quit after you build and sell a successful business. Don't quit on the journey. I'm gonna share with you why I don't quit when it's working, why I keep working when it's not working for me. Are y'all ready for this? This is so mind-blowing. I'm gonna read something to you from Ecclesiastes chapter 10. I would venture to guess, if I were a betting man, and I'm not, but were I a betting man, I would venture to bet that you have probably never heard a sermon on this passage in your life. You've never heard anybody teach on it, probably. I know I've never heard anybody teach on it. Okay, Ecclesiastes chapter 10, starting with verse 5. We're gonna read down to verse number 9. Here's what it says. There is an evil which I have seen under the sun, as an error which proceedeth from the ruler. Folly is set in great dignity, and the rich sit in low place. I have seen servants upon horses, and princes walking as servants upon the earth. He that diggeth a pit shall fall into it. Whoso breaketh a hedge, a serpent shall bite him. Whoso removeth stones shall be hurt therewith, and he that cleaveth wood shall be endangered thereby. What? Let's go. Here's the problem. People will start working on something because they have this grand vision in their mind. And they think, when this happens, it's gonna be great. And it doesn't happen as fast or as smoothly as they thought it should happen, and then they quit. The reason I keep working when things aren't working, and I'm using that tongue-in-cheek, aren't working, when they seem to not be working, is because I understand how it really works. Yes, there's danger involved, there's risks involved. But even though there are risks involved, I'm gonna work when it looks like it might not work, if when it does work, it's worth it. See, if the downside is limited and the upside is unlimited, that is a chance I'm always willing to take. And see, there are people who are not willing to take a chance on an unlimited upside because they're so afraid of the limited downside. Now, if something has a limited upside and an unlimited downside, I'm just gonna ignore it. It's not even worth looking at. For me, if something has the potential to make me go back to ground zero and start over from scratch, I'm not even gonna look at it. Unless I'm already at ground zero. Then it doesn't matter. See, it's interesting. You remember the parable about the talents, right? The master comes to his talent, we're gonna call him an employee. The employee comes to his employees. He says, I'm going on a long journey, I need you to manage my money while I'm gone. He gave one 5 talents. He gave another 2 to another, he gave 1. He went, came back. This is in Matthew chapter 25 for those of you who want to go read it later. He went away, came back. When he came back, the one he gave 5 to said, you know, while you were gone, I gave your money to the exchangers, and I've turned your 5 into 10. Here's your 10. The one that got 2 said, oh, you remember that talent you gave, the 2 talents you gave me? Yeah, I took it, I put it in the exchange, and I traded it, and when it came back, I've got 4 for you. Would like to have done more, but I got these 4. The guy that received 1 came to his boss and said, you know, I know you're a hard man, and you gather where you haven't reaped, and you reap where you haven't sown, and you gather where you haven't strawed. So I made sure I didn't lose it. And because I was afraid, I buried it in the earth. And here, you can have your talent back. He said, wait, time out. You knew I reap where I haven't sown? You knew I gather where I haven't strong? You should have then taken my money and given it to the exchanger so that when I came back, I might have received mine own with usury. Why? Because God loves multiplication. Now here's what's interesting about that whole story. Who had the most to lose, the guy with 5 talents or the guy with 1? The guy with 5. I am telling you, this is one of the most strange phenomenons in the world. Phenomena in the world. Phenomenons, phenomena. Don't do it, Myron, don't do it. I just started thinking of these little children's cartoons that I used to watch when I was a kid. I'm like, what's going on? Okay, so here's what's amazing. The people that have the most to lose are the least afraid to lose it. And the people that have the least to lose are the most afraid to lose it. It's just like that today. Yeah, man, that seems like a scam. Bro, I got some bad news for you. You grown and broke. You already been scammed. You're a full-grown adult. And broke. And you worried about somebody scamming you? What they gonna get? And so Solomon said, I've seen an evil on the earth. What's the evil? I've seen an evil which I've seen under the sun, and an error that proceeded from the ruler. Folly is set in great dignity. There are people who are more successful than you, who are less talented than you. There are people who are more successful than you that are not as smart as you. There are people that are more successful than you who are less skillful than you. The difference is servants upon horses, princes walking as servants upon the earth. Why? Well, I believe the next verse tells us, he that diggeth a pit shall fall into it. The risk associated with preparing to build something scares people away. It says, he that breaketh the hedge, a serpent shall bite him. This is really fast. This whole story is really fascinating to me. He that diggeth a pit shall fall into it. Whoso breaketh the hedge, a serpent shall bite him. Whoso removeth stones shall be hurt therewith, and he that cleaveth wood shall be endangered thereby. So let's talk about, okay, you're digging a pit. If you fall into the pit, what could happen? Well, you could break your neck. You could break your arm, you could break your leg, depending on how deep the ditch is, right? So it's like, I don't want to dig a ditch that might end up causing me to fall into it and break my neck. And digging a ditch is really an interesting analogy to make. So if you read King Solomon, so if you go read 1 Kings chapter 3, you will see that Solomon asked God for an understanding heart to discern judgment. God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding greater than all the kings that were before him, greater than all the kings that came after him. And the next chapter says that Solomon wrote 3,000 proverbs and his songs were 1,005. 3,000 proverbs. I want you to think about that. So in our modern day vernacular, that would be like Instagram post, Facebook post, Twitter post. Do you have 3,000 Instagram posts, Twitter posts, right? And you wonder why nobody knows about you. Because the wisdom that you have, you're not putting out into the marketplace for the world to find. I'm telling you, okay, so our business has done millions and millions of dollars in sales. And guess what? This year, we spent $0 on advertising. Why? Because we've written 3,000 proverbs and our songs are 1,005. Are you tracking? All I do is put content out that helps people. I don't have to go look for them. They come looking for me. Do you have any more? Do you have any more? Do you have any more? And anybody can do that. But see, unfortunately, because we were programmed in a Western society where some previous historical business moguls didn't understand that winning is not a zero-sum game, they built manufacturing plants to make the stuff that they were going to sell to the consumers, and then they built manufacturing plants for the workers to come work in their factories, and they call them schools. Oh, that's a historic fact. That's why the Rockefeller Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, they contribute so much money to the educational system. so they can produce exactly the person they want for the jobs that need to be filled in their factories. That was their original intent. That's not, oh, I thought that was common knowledge. Okay, and so here's the problem though. Because we've been programmed to have a job, we think that the 11th commandment was thou shalt have a job with benefits. Right? That's what we think. But the reality is, there's nothing wrong with having a job, but it does creates some issues inside of us. We become dependent on someone we don't know to make sure that we and our families are provided for. That's one. But the other problem is we get addicted to a paycheck. And we become so addicted to a paycheck that if it doesn't make us money instantly, we don't want to do it. And so when you're doing your writing your 3,000 proverbs and your 1,005 songs, maybe you don't make any money at all until that 1,005th song comes out, right? And see, we want to sow today and reap today. That's not the law of the farm. The farm don't work like that. We got drive-through restaurants, drive-through banking, drive-through dry cleaners. We got instant microwavable meals, instant this, instant that. Everything's instant, drive-through, and microwavable. So we want instant drive-through microwavable success. It doesn't work like that. This ain't that, y'all. And so the reason I keep working when it's not working for me is because I know that I'm bigger than it. And I know that if I'm not afraid of the risk and I keep on going, like when I was broke, you lose everything, that's okay. I haven't had anything most of my life, I'll be all right. Right? And I did, I mean, for the most part, went from being really, really rich to being really, really poor for a number of years. But the reason I became poor is because I lost perspective. It wasn't because, and I didn't become poor, I became broke. I didn't have any money for a short period of time. I was in transition. I was in transition. I was transitioning from not having no money to having some money. Okay, so the interesting thing about that is, I just lost perspective. I lost perspective of truth. And I started getting meaning from circumstance instead of giving meaning to circumstance. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? And the whole word circumstance is really fascinating anyway, isn't it? Because the scripture says, a wise man's eyes are in his head. Think about that. A wise man's eyes are in his head. What can we ascertain from that? Well, we don't see with our eyes. We see with our mind. Our eyes are just one of the tools our mind uses to see. And what's interesting is there are two types of animals on the earth. What are they? Predators and prey. Now, what's interesting is most prey, just basically eats grass and berries and nuts and stuff, and most predators eat other animals, right? Well, here's what's interesting. In order for the prey to stay alive, it has to starve the predator. In order for the predator to stay alive, it has to eat the prey. Here's what that means. Somebody got to go. Okay, now, you can tell, when you look at an animal, you can tell by looking at them at a glance whether they're predator or whether they're prey. How can you tell? Where their eyes are located. Where their eyes are located. Predators have their eyes in front of their head so they can see what they're pursuing. Prey have their eyes on the side of their head so they can see what's pursuing them. So if you take your hands, if you take your fingers, everybody take your fingers like this. Take your fingers like this. Even on YouTube, take your fingers like this. I'm watching you. I'm not really watching you on YouTube, but I'm pretending I am. Okay, take your fingers like this. I want you to look at both fingers. Keep your eye on both fingers as you move your arms farther apart. So we have, that's about it right there. I'm going to say, based on my understanding of geometry, that's about a radius of 172%. It's not quite 180. 180, I can't see either one. Okay, I even got to 177%. Okay, 177% radius. Why? Because my eyes are in front of my head. But imagine this. If one eye's on this side and one eye's on this side, I can see halfway around this way and halfway around this way. I can see what's around me. So, think about this. The word circumstance comes from the word circle and stand. What is a circumstance? A circumstance is the situation that surrounds me while I'm standing still. So, if you're going to change your circumstance, stop standing. It's called a circumrun. It ain't called a circumcharge. It ain't called a circummarch. What's it called? A circumstance. Stop standing. And so, the prey has its eyes on the side of its head. The predator has the eyes in front of her head. The wise man's eyes are in his head. So I get to decide every day when I wake up, am I going to be a predator who passionately pursues my purpose? Or am I going to be a prey who's paralyzed by all the circumstances that surround me? And so many people are so paralyzed by looking at all the things that could go wrong if they do this thing that's in them. They were made for it. But if they do it, they ask the most expensive question in world history. But what if it doesn't work? Do you realize that it's hard to get the answer to the question you don't ask? But if you ask, what if this doesn't work? Guess what answer you're gonna get? Well, if it doesn't work, I ain't gonna make no money, and they're gonna come get my car, and I'm gonna be living in the dark, and I'm gonna get evicted out of my house, and, right? Because you asked the question, what if it doesn't work? So the only answer you can get is the answer to what if it doesn't work. If you learn to ask better questions, you will discover better answers. What's a better question than what if this doesn't work? Here's a good one. How awesome is this going to be when it works? Wow. Wonder what neighborhood I'm going to live in when it works. Wonder what kind of car I'm going to drive when it works. Where would I like to go on vacation when this works? Would I like to fly private when this works? Are you tracking? So when you ask better questions, you get better answers. And so because there are princes walking as servants upon the earth, and folly is set in great dignity and the rich sit in low place, because he that diggeth a pit shall fall into it. So those are some of the dangers. Breaketh a hedge, the serpent shall bite him. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, the serpent bites you. One thing we know gonna happen: if the serpent bites you, it's gonna hurt, right? And if it's a venomous serpent, you're gonna get sick. If it's venomous enough, you might die. So because I might fall into the pit, I'm not gonna dig it. Because I might get, when I'm clearing this area, there might be a snake in there. And I'm gonna be honest with you now. Okay. So there. That was a good accident. Okay. So I'm a golfer. In Florida, here's what we have in the woods. Everything. Everything. We got alligators in the woods. Not just in the water, they're in the woods too now. I've seen them in the woods. Okay, we got alligators in the woods. We got bobcats in the woods. Wild hogs in the woods. I mean, depending on what part of Florida, panthers in the woods. And my least favorite of all, snakes. My chances of seeing a panther in the woods are good. Woods are green. I'm colorblind, but I can tell that Black Panther ain't green. Right? My chance of seeing a wild hog in the woods pretty good. Even an alligator you know, they're really big and lethargic and kind of clumsy-ish on land. I can see it probably before it sees me. But a snake? That joker could be sitting right beside me licking his chops, and I don't even see it. So, the concern about serpents, like, I get it. I'd rather be 5 feet from an alligator than 5 feet from a snake. 8 days a week, twice on Sunday. So, it's not that the potential danger is not real. The potential danger is real. He that breaketh the hedge, the serpent shall bite him. He that moveth stones, removeth stones, shall be hurt therewith. You might drop one on your foot, break your foot. You might be putting one up on top of something and drop it on your head and get a concussion. Like when you're working on something, here's what we're learning from this. Work has risk associated with it. If you don't do the work because you're afraid of the risk, you will never get the wealth that only the work can bring. So it's not that we should ignore risks, because the scripture says, the wise man foreseeth evil and hideth himself, but the foolish pass on and are punished. So we don't want to be stupid about it. What we want to do is we want to measure the risk, and then we want to calculate whether the risk is worth the reward. And if the risk is a limited downside and the reward is an unlimited upside, I'm jumping on that train every time. As long as that train is going in the direction of my purpose. Are y'all tracking? Because, by the way, making money should not be the primary determining factor of whether or not you say yes or no to a business opportunity. Because all good money ain't good. You can make some good money doing some bad things. You can make some good money doing some things that are filled with hassle that are not bad. They're just filled with hassle. I don't like hassle. So you know what I do? I don't do those things. I don't like doing bad things. I'm not, oh, but this thing can make you so. I get that. Brother man can't be, I can't do it. So, then it says, he that moveth the stone. Now here's the parallel that I saw. When I'm reading this, I'm thinking, this is amazing. This reminds me of the first command. Not the first commandment, the first command. It says, he that removeth stones shall be hurt therewith, and he that cleaveth wood shall be endangered thereby. What's going to happen? Well, you can be cleaving wood, chopping wood with an axe, right? And you can get a splinter in your eye or in your hand. Or the axe head could come off and hit you in the arm or the leg or the foot. There are dangers associated with work. That's why it ain't called play. But there's dangers associated with play. We just have to evaluate whether or not the risk is worth it. And see, some of us won't even risk hurt feelings enough to make an offer to somebody to make their life better, and it would be good for them and profitable for us. Because we are so internally fragile that if somebody says no, we feel like we've been rejected by our 7th grade boyfriend or girlfriend, right? Am I telling the truth? It's like, I don't like the way that feels. I didn't have a 7th grade girlfriend. I like girls, but I didn't think they liked me, so I just left them alone. Like, this is too much hassle. Okay, anyway. It's really interesting that the first command, wow, why does that keep happening? The first thing that God ever said to man, was, like, this is the first conversation that God had with a human. Be fruitful, do multiply, do replenish the earth, and subdue it. And then have dominion. Now, here's what he said. Be, do, have. That's a formula. The first success formula in world history. Be, do, have. Here's what it means. Don't be, can't do, can't have. Be a little, do a little, have a little. Be a lot, do a lot, have a lot. Are y'all tracking? Now, you say, what does this have to do with this? Well, when I'm reading this, I'm thinking about, what do you dig holes for? Dig holes for preparation. Maybe you're going to build a building, you dig a hole to pour a foundation in. Maybe you're going to plant some seed, you dig a hole to put the seed in. Maybe you're going to plant a tree, you dig a hole to put the tree in. You track it? So when you're digging a hole is preparation. You're preparing for something. And so, because for a lot of people, they won't prepare for their assignment because of the time cost associated with it, the money cost associated with it, or the stigma cost associated with it. And so they don't prepare. And so when their time comes, they're not ready. In fact, I think it's in chapter 9. Here's what it says in chapter 9. It says, in Ecclesiastes 9:10, it says, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. In other words, whatever you're going to do, put everything you got into it. And if it's not worth putting everything you got into, it's probably not worth doing it at all. Does that make sense? Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. Let me see, where was I? Yeah, whatsoever thou do it with thy might, for there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest. Watch what happens next. I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift. So you're not going to win the race just because you're the fastest. That doesn't guarantee you a win. The race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet, in other words, just because you're the strongest in the fight don't mean you will win the fight. Neither yet bread to the wise. You're not going to eat the best just because you're the most wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding. You're not going to be the richest just because you understand the most. Nor yet favor to men of skill. You're not going to find favor just because you're the most skillful. What does it say though? It says, but time and chance happeneth to them all. Time and chance is not talking about luck. Time and chance is the intersection between preparation and opportunity. So who is the person that wins the race? The one that's most prepared when the race starts. Who is the person that wins the battle? The one that's most prepared when the battle starts. Who is the one that has favor and bread and riches? The one who's most prepared. And if you dig a hole while you're preparing yourself, here's what's going to happen. It's going to take time. Preparing yourself is going to take time. And some people, because of the risk associated with the time that it takes to prepare, because that time that I'm preparing, I'm not doing other things that I'd really rather do. Can I get a witness? So I'm not preparing for the rest of my life because I'm existing through this current chapter in my life. And so, I don't prepare. He that, I think it said, cutteth a hedge. I want to read it to you because I don't want to be making stuff up. I mean, I'm good at making stuff up, but I don't want to make stuff up when it comes to the Bible. Okay, so, he that breaketh the hedge, a serpent shall bite him. So, I forgot to tell you, be fruitful, multiply. Let me go back there first. Be fruitful. What is fruitful? A fruit, according to Genesis, is a living organism whose seed is in itself. So, the ability to regenerate and replicate and duplicate and multiply is inside of you. So when God told man to be fruitful, God is telling us that he put an aspect of his creativity, the seed of an aspect of his creativity inside of all of us. But it's a different seed. God gave some people the seed of singing like an angel. And some people he gave the seed of building like an architect. And some people he gave the ability to communicate, an orator. And to some people he gave the ability to write like a Pulitzer Prize winning author. He didn't give any of us everything, but he gave all of us something. But what we have to do is we have to cultivate the seed of the aspect of creativity that God put inside of us. We have to cultivate that seed and let it produce. So that's the B part. Being fruitful means you make sure what I put inside of you shows up outside of you. That's what be fruitful means. Multiply, what's that mean? Increase. So you're going to increase. What's that mean? Well, when you start increase, it's going to take up what? It's going to take up space, right? If you're going to be fruitful, you got to plant a seed in the ground, right? If you're going to increase, you're going to need space. And so you have to clear out all of this rubbish. You have to clear out these bushes. You have to clear out these hedges. Oh, a snake might bite you. Clear it out anyway. Make room. Like, you prepare yourself, and then you make room for the blessing, regardless of the risk associated with making room. Are you tracking? Yes. And then it says, he that moveth stones shall be hurt therewith. Be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth. Replenish means to fill up the earth. So after I clear out this space, now I need to fill up the earth. What is moving stones? Why am I moving stones? Because stones are what we build things with. And so there's risk associated with the preparation. There's risk associated with the clearing. There's and making of room. There's risk associated with building something. But do it anyway. It's not going to be easy, it's just going to be worth it. It's not going to be cheap, it's just going to be worth it. Everybody's not going to go with you, but it's still going to be worth it. Are y'all tracking? This is why I keep on working when stuff seems like it's not working for me. And I say it seems like it's not working for you because everything is working. It's either working on me or it's working for me. And so many people don't like the way it feels when the work is working on you, so you stop working on it. And so because you stop working on it, it can't work for you. But if you let it work on you long enough, you will become the person for whom it can work. But between the time you dig the hole and plant the seed and clear the space and move the stone and start building, between all of that time, there's a gestation period. Don't become impatient with it. Just, I sowed the seed yesterday, where's my fruit? It's not how it works. So, then, it says, he that cleaveth wood shall be endangered thereby. Well, what is that talking about? Cleaveth wood, that's what we do when we cut down trees, right? We're cleaving wood, right? We're chopping wood. Well, what's the last thing the scripture tells you? Be fruitful, dig the hole, right? Multiply. You need to clear out some space for all the stuff you're about to have. Increase, you start to build. And then, replenish the earth, okay? That's replenish the earth, you're filling it, that means to fill it up, you're building stuff. And then, it says, subdue it. Subdue? What does subdue mean? Trample down. Because disruption always follows intention. So when you start to dig your hole, you're going to face some opposition. And when you start to clear out the shrubs, you're going to face some opposition when you start to make room. And when you start to build something, you're going to face some opposition. So in case you're confused, because a lot of people think that when it doesn't work instantly, that's a sign they're going in the wrong direction. But oftentimes, that's a sign you're going in the right direction. You start working out, you don't feel stronger first. You feel in pain and weaker first. You start eating right. You don't feel better first. You have a healing crisis. And you start feeling worse first. Mo worse comes before mo better. How many of y'all tracking? And see, we want the mo better, but we don't want the mo worse that comes before the mo better. And here's what God said. He said, subdue the earth. If he's telling me to subdue it, if he's telling me to trample it down, that means two things. Number one, I am above it. Number two, I'm more powerful than it, whatever it is. That's why I don't worry about obstacles, because I can subdue them. And when I'm subduing them, I'm using my axe to chop down the tree. There's a danger associated with that. And so because there's a danger associated with that, there are a lot of people who should be further in their life. They're not further because all of the risks associated with preparing and making room and building and subduing and cleaving wood and chopping stuff down and overcoming obstacles is too much for them to process, so they seek something they can't find called security. In the words of Helen Keller, security does not exist in all of nature, neither do the sons of men as a whole experience it. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. Benjamin Franklin said, if we seek security, we have no independence. Robert G. Allen said there are two doors in life. One is marked freedom, the other is marked security. If you choose the door marked security, you get neither. If you choose the door marked freedom, you get both. If you go through life hyper avoiding every risk, you are also hyper avoiding every reward. Here's what's interesting. While I'm digging holes and preparing, while I'm clearing out hedges and making room, while I'm moving stones and building, while I'm cleaving wood and clearing, while I'm doing all of that stuff, I am becoming the person for whom it can work. I don't believe that hard work is the formula for success. I believe that hard work is one of the formulas for becoming a better person. Yes. I don't work hard for money. I work hard because if it's worth putting anything into, it's worth putting everything into. How do I know that? Because it says it in the Bible. Whatsoever thy hand find to do, do it with thy might. I'm not working hard for the money. I'm working hard so that I can, everything I do, I want it to show up as excellence. I'm telling you, if you will trust the process, the if then go to statements, the conditional promises, and you do the conditions and let God take care of the promises, you're going to be blown away. By the way, blown away is not the only thing you're going to be. Before you're blown away, you're going to be misunderstood. And you're not just going to be misunderstood by people who don't know you and don't like you. You're going to be misunderstood by people who love you, people who are family members, maybe a spouse, maybe a child, maybe a parent. Maybe your best friend's going to misunderstand you, but you're going to be misunderstood. Do not think for a half of a millisecond that Christ, who was perfect in every way, shape, and form, he doeth all things well. Such an high priest became us who is holy, harmless, undefiled, and separate from sinners, who needeth not daily as those high priests to offer up sacrifice first for his own sins and then for the sins of the people. This he did once when he offered up himself. If he's all that and he's misunderstood, why are you tripping? Don't be surprised when people don't understand you. Be surprised when they do. I'm telling you, some of you are really, really close, but it doesn't feel like it. You're really, really close. I'm talking about to a breakthrough that will create so much momentum for you. When you're working, you'll feel like you're playing. You're so close, but it doesn't feel like you're close. Don't allow the enemy to deceive you in believing that the risk is not worth the reward. Honest, God is my witness. Back in 2014, when I was sitting on my patio crying on my wife's shoulder because I didn't know if I wanted to be an entrepreneur anymore. Can you imagine that? Me not knowing if I want to be an entrepreneur. I wasn't sure. I was like, baby, nothing I'm working on is working. Except it was more of an ugly, right? It was that kind of thing. But it was working. It was just working on me. It was making me a better version of myself than I was heretofore, than I had been heretofore, actually. And so it was making me a better version of myself. But I had to stay in the game. I had to stay on the journey. I couldn't afford to put the shovel down just because I might fall in the ditch. I couldn't afford not to move the hedges, break the hedges just because a snake might bite me. I couldn't afford not to build the thing just because the stone might fall on me. I couldn't afford not to trample down everything that tries to stop me just because I'm going to be endangered thereby. I can't walk away from the purpose of my life because the risk of it feels too great. Because here's what I don't want to be. When the Lord comes back and calls me to him as his servant, I want to say, that 5 talents you gave me, that 2 talents you gave me, I turned it into 2 more. I turned it into 5 more. Here's what I don't want to say. Because I knew you were a hard man, and you gather where you haven't strawed, you reap where you haven't sown. I buried your talent in the earth. And here you can have what's yours. I don't want to say that. because I don't want to hear you wicked and unprofitable servant. You knew. But even though you knew, you didn't do what you were supposed to do, even though you knew. I don't want to be that guy. So, every time you read this from now on, you'll see it different. How many of y'all, honestly, you never heard anybody teach on this passage before, have you? Have you? No. I'm like, this is so good. I'm like, this is so good. There is an evil which I have seen under the sun as an error that proceedeth from the ruler. Folly is in great dignity. Why? Because they were foolish enough to take a chance on something that shouldn't have worked for them. It should work for you, but they did it. And the rich sit in low place. Do you realize how rich in natural resourcefulness you are in natural resourcefulness deposits? People say, we're running out of natural resources. No, we're running out of people who are resourceful. I have seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon the earth. Why? Because he that diggeth a pit shall fall into it. I'm telling you, you're close. You listen to me on YouTube, you looking at my God-given eyeballs? You're close. You're real close. I'm so glad that in 2014 I didn't quit. Maybe something I've said has helped somebody in this room. It wouldn't have happened if I would have quit. Maybe something I've said has helped somebody out there on the interwebs. It wouldn't happen if I had quit. And the people that you've been sent to serve in the future, if you stop working, passionately pursuing your purpose, when they get to that place in their life where you were supposed to impact them, and you're not there, you fumbled on the 5-yard line. Don't give up. I almost gave up. This is not coming from somebody who's never been through anything. I almost gave up. I was like, I don't know, man. I'm tired. I was young and had a lot of energy when I got started on this thing. I'm tripping now. I'm young still-ish. 62 years youngish, right? But I was tired. I had already built something up, and it was going great. And because I mismanaged it, I'm keeping it real, I'm gonna take full responsibility. I mean, yeah, we had some circumstances, we had some situations happen, but if I had acted like circumstances happen, situations come up, then I would have been ready, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared. When time and chance came, I wasn't ready. Abraham Lincoln said, I will prepare myself and perhaps my time will come. Myron Golden says, your time gonna come whether you prepare yourself or not. If you're prepared when your time comes, it will reveal you. If you're not prepared, it will expose you. Don't quit. Make sure that your life turns into a reveal, not an expose. I hope this blesses you, like in a really, really big way, but I'm telling you one more time, don't quit, you're almost there. And even if you're not almost there, you're closer than you were last year, and you're closer than you were yesterday. Stay on the journey. Take the risk that's worth the reward, but make sure you count the cost. Stay blessed by the best, my people. Peace out, Cub Scouts. Have you ever felt like you've been trying really, really hard to learn something and you feel like you're just like, and you're putting all your effort into it and it's still not clicking? That's how most people live their lives. But I've got good news. You can stop looking for wisdom, because wisdom is looking for you. And when it finds you, it brings all kinds of good stuff with it. So let's go and look at the fact that wisdom is looking for you. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I used to think, when I used to hear the word wisdom when I was younger, I just thought it meant smart, right? You think wisdom, you think intelligence. You think high IQ. You might even think educated, right? Wisdom is none of those things. But before I tell you what wisdom is, let me share with you the prerequisites to wisdom. Because wisdom is it's like the penthouse floor in a skyscraper. Wisdom is like the steeple on top of the church. Like wisdom is the crest of the mountain. But in order for it to be there, it has to have some stuff under it. And so the things that you have to have before you can have wisdom, number one is you have to have ignorance. Ignorance is a prerequisite to wisdom. Now, ignorance is an absence of truth. When you don't know the truth about something, you ignore that truth because you don't know it, right? You might stumble upon it, but you're not going to intentionally practice truth that you are unaware of. So ignorance is a prerequisite of truth. Congratulations, you were born with that one. Then, one day, your mama caught you red-handed. You're going, slobbering all over the place. She said, that's your hand, baby, that's your hand. You go, ha. And so you learned you have a hand. Then you have another hand. Then you learned your right hand from your left hand. You have a foot. You had to learn all these things. You were born, you had 0 words in your vocabulary, but you had the potential for thousands of words in your vocabulary. And so you began to learn things, and you acquired the second prerequisite to wisdom, which is knowledge. Wisdom is the absence of truth. Knowledge is the accumulation of truth. So there's a verse in Scripture that says, a wise man is strong, but a man of knowledge increases the strength. What does that mean? That means if you have knowledge, it makes wisdom stronger. Your wisdom can only be as strong as the knowledge base it's built upon, right? That's why it's important to be a perpetual learner. We all have to become perpetual learners. Learn about what? As much as we can, as it helps us on our assignment in life. So, ignorance is the absence of truth. Knowledge is the accumulation of truth. We learn truth about ourselves. We learn truth about God. We learn truth about society. We learn societal truths. We learn spiritual truths. We learn scientific truths. We learn historical truths. We learn biblical truths. We learn mathematical truths. We learn musical truths, artistic truths. And here's what's really interesting about truth. All truth verifies itself, whereas lies always are self-contradicting. Like if you tell a lie, eventually it's going to bump its head on itself. But the truth doesn't do that. The truth always supports the truth. It's really interesting to me how mathematical truth supports musical truth, and how mathematical truth supports scientific truth, and how biblical truth supports all of those truths. It's so fascinating to me how it's all connected. You know, when I read books like Stealing from God by Frank Turek, Why Atheists Need God to State Their Case. Like, an atheist can't even introduce themselves to you until they introduce you to God first. When they say, I am an atheist, they said God's name before they said who they were. They can't tell you how old they are without God. What is 2023? 2023 Anno Domini. What does that mean? 2023 years after the death of our Lord. All dates are based on Christ. They're either BC or they're AD. Like science, like everything points to the truth that God is. So knowledge is the accumulation of truth. Understanding is the assimilation of truth. Did you realize you can accumulate a truth and not understand it, not assimilate it? You can collect a truth and not comprehend it. So just because you know something doesn't mean you understand it. And here's one of the biggest problems most people have when it comes to the Bible. A lot of Christians, a lot of preachers, a lot of churchgoers, they know the Bible, but they don't understand it. They know what it says and have no idea what it's saying. The Bible calls the biblical knowledge, that's the logos, what the word says. But rhema is what God is saying and what he has already said. And so understanding is another prerequisite of truth. So the three prerequisites of truth are ignorance, the absence of truth, knowledge, the accumulation of truth, understanding, the assimilation of truth, and then you can now have wisdom. What's wisdom? The application of truth. In fact, the biblical word wisdom, the Old Testament word wisdom, will be translated into our modern day word skill. So wisdom is not something that's declared. Wisdom is something that's demonstrated. Wisdom isn't what you say. Wisdom is what you do. So, here's what it says. Proverbs chapter number 8. It says, doth not wisdom cry and understanding put forth her voice? She standeth in the top of the high places, by the way in the places of the paths. She crieth at the gates, in the entry of the city, at the coming in, at the doors. Unto you, O men, I call, and my voice is to the sons of men. O ye simple, understand wisdom. Ye fools, be of an understanding heart. Hear, for I will speak of excellent things, and the opening of my lips shall be right things. For my mouth shall speak truth, and wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are righteousness. There is nothing froward or perverse in them. They are plain to him that understandeth, and right to them that find knowledge. Receive my instruction, and not silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. Why is it saying that? It's saying if you have to choose between silver and wisdom, choose wisdom. If you have to choose between understanding and gold, choose understanding. Why? Because silver and gold can't necessarily get you wisdom and understanding, but wisdom and understanding can definitely get you silver and gold. That's why, somebody said, if you take all the wealth in the world and you distribute it evenly amongst every human being, within a very short period of time, most of the money would be back all in the same hands. Why? Because it's the result of the wisdom that we apply that produces the wealth that we seek. When I think about how hard I used to work, like when I worked on a farm, or when I worked on putting on a rubber roof, or when I worked in a body shop, or all of the hard things that I've done in my life since I started working, and I think about the level of ease compared to then. I'm not saying the work I do is not hard now. Like yesterday, my work day was so intense. I was like done. I didn't finish until like 9:30 last night. That's unusual, but it happens, right? I did go play golf in between, but I went and played golf just so I could decompress from the intensity of my day, right? And then, so I didn't get done until last night. And I think about now, I was struggling to eke out a meager existence. I've never had a job in my life that paid more than $30,000 a year working for somebody, ever. Ever. Full-time as a grown man, the most I've ever made is $30,000 a year. Everybody on my team makes more than that. I was going to say I got part-time people who make more than that. Pretty much everybody's part-time. I mean, ish, right? Except for the times we're working overtime and double time and triple time. But other than that, we're part-time, right? So this week wasn't part-time for any of us, right? Next week, we got travel and all kinds of craziness going on. But you say, Myron, what's your point? Here's my point. My point is that the reason I work so hard to produce so little is because of how little knowledge and understanding and wisdom I had. I don't make more money now because I work harder now. I make more money because I have more knowledge and more understanding and more wisdom. Many of the things I do now to get paid, I could have done them then. I just didn't know that those things paid. So I had the skill. I had it in my inventory. I didn't value it. It was like, all I know how to do is this. Little did I know that that thing was my fortune while I was eking out a meager existence doing some lesser thing for someone else. Well, choose wisdom and not silver, understanding rather than choice gold. receive instruction and not silver, and knowledge rather than fine gold. For wisdom is better than rubies, and all the things that may be desired are not to be compared to it. Let's wrap our minds around that. Think about some stuff that could be desired. Planes, trains, and automobiles, wardrobes and outfits, real estate, investment property, right? A private island, a private jet, a private yacht. All of those things could be desired, right? Like having servants to just provide everything you want provided. All of that could be desired. But here's what the scripture says. It says that wisdom is better than rubies, and all the things that may be desired cannot be compared to it. Let me ask you a question. Do you want wisdom more than you want anything else? Wow. Wow. The name of my business, at least for the time being, is Skillionaire Enterprises, Inc. You know why I named my business Skillionaire Enterprises? Because skill is wisdom. And if you want to be a millionaire, you have to be a skillionaire first. You have to have the skills that can make the mills. And then you don't have to have the skills that can just pay the bills. I was feeling poetic. I was feeling poetic. Okay. And so like, I'm asking you. I'm asking you on YouTube. I'm asking y'all in here. Y'all if you're from the South, yuns if you're from Western Pennsylvania, yous guys if you're from Indiana. I'm asking y'all, do you want wisdom more than you desire anything else? Now, we see, like, this is a biblical principle, but God gave us a story in the Bible about a man who God, who owns everything, came to this man in a dream and said, ask me for anything and I will give it to you. He could have asked for houses and lands and money and the life of his enemies and a long life to enjoy the fruit of his labor. He said, Lord, I can only think of one thing. Give me understanding to discern judgment. Dear Lord, give me the wisdom to do the thing you put me on this earth to do in a way that pleases you so I can serve the people you put me here to serve. What? Are you passionately pursuing the wisdom to serve other people? Wow. It's mind-blowing. Like, I can think of some things I desire. So, like, I would eventually, I think eventually I'll probably buy a jet, eventually. If my travel schedule stays crazy. Like, I could buy one now, but then why would I do that? Because I don't travel enough to justify it, right? But I do fly on private jets, but I don't own one. But I could see myself owning a jet. And see, a lot of people say, yeah, you could charter it out and make money. Not my jet. If I had a jet, only people getting on is me and my peeps. Me, my family, and my clients, nobody else. Renting out my jet for people to be partying on it? No, sir. But that's something that could be desired, but I desire wisdom way more than that. I literally spend hours every day learning something new. Hours. You know why? Because I feel like I don't know enough. And I'm going to tell you something, and y'all may think I'm just saying that, but I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to show you on the blackboard I'm going to show you how, like, what happens when wisdom and when knowledge increases. I'm going to show you what happens. I'm going to show you why. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, if you've ever thought about it. I know you've experienced it. I don't know if you've ever thought about it. But the more you learn, the less you feel like you know. About what? Anything. The more I learn about anything, the less I feel like I know. That's why the people who know the least are the people who we call know-it-alls. They think they know everything because they don't know how much there is to know that they don't know. Right? Like, the less you know, the more you feel like you know. If you don't believe me, have a teenager. Well, can I have a witness up in here? So I'm going to show you what happens. By the way, this is one of the reasons why the educational space, the online educational space is growing so fast, and it's billions upon billions of dollars, because the world is changing so fast. Man, there's so many things I could go into right now. The world is changing faster now than it's ever changed in the history of the world. The world changes now more every year than it used to change every century. I mean, wrap your mind around that. So by the way, how many of you have noticed on YouTube, how many of you have noticed that the longer you live, like, it feels like life is getting harder, right? Like, it feels harder to make money. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I've got good news for you. The good news is it's easier to create wealth now than it's ever been in human history. But it doesn't always feel like it. Can I get a witness? Right? It doesn't feel like it. Like, it's way easier to make a lot of money now. Like, anybody can get rich now. I mean, I see teenagers, I see kids that are like 11 and 12 making millions of dollars. Why does it feel so hard if it's so much easier? Because the world is changing faster. So think about it. During the agricultural age lasted for thousands of years. You had thousands of years to get ready to learn a skill. And by the time you got ready, everything still worked the same way it did when you were born. In the industrial age, skills lasted for a couple of decades. Because the industrial age lasted for a couple hundred years, right? From the mid-1700s to the mid-1900s, that was the industrial age. And then we went into the distribution age in what, the mid-1950s. And that only lasted until 1978, so a couple of decades. And then we went into the technology age in 1978, and that only lasted until about 1990, 1994 maybe. Wait, so what's happening? Economic eras are getting shorter and shorter. You know what that means? We have less time to tool up. So there was a time because of the economic infrastructure of the world, that the people who specialized on one thing and spent most of their life learning one thing, those were the people who did the best. That's no longer true. Like, the fortunes belong to the generalist, to the people who understand the most about many things, right? But it takes longer to learn more things than it does to learn fewer things. And so what happens is, as a direct result of the world changing so fast, it feels like I just don't have enough time to get ready. That's why unless you're going to build bridges or be a brain surgeon or be a lawyer or a doctor or whoever, literally you can't, like, getting a college degree is not going to do you much good. By the time you graduate from college, the stuff you learned in your 4-year degree, it's all obsolete. It's no longer true. It doesn't work anymore. How many of y'all tracking? Okay, so here's what happens. This is your knowledge base. So we all have a knowledge base, and it is what it is. Let's say this is the size of our knowledge base. So everything that we know is in this little circle. Everything that I know is in that circle. Everything that you know is in that circle, in your knowledge base. All this blank space around here that extends far beyond this board and more, that is what you don't know, but it's available to know. Wisdom crying in the streets, okay? So on the outside of your knowledge base, we have these little vacuum tubes. By the way, this is not scientific. This is an illustration that I created to help you understand this concept. You're not gonna find this in any science book anywhere. No, but Myron Golden said, I got this knowledge base, I got these vacuum tubes. Okay, so this is an illustration, okay? So we got these vacuum tubes, and what these vacuum tubes do is they suck in as much knowledge that we're interested in that's directly around our knowledge base. But like, those vacuum tubes can't suck in knowledge over here that's like really great and it could make me $40 million, and it can't reach knowledge over here because this knowledge base, the vacuum tubes, the idea receptors, I call those vacuum tubes idea receptors, they don't even know this stuff exists. So it might as well
Su mente está en blanco cuando tira un doble tempo. Wow, qué buena rima ese chiquito. La mente en blanco pone ese pobre angelito. Lo blanco era la pantalla hace un ratito. Es que cuando rapea trueno empiezan los cortocircuitos.
Sabe que vengo porque yo sí tengo talento. Si cada palabra yo vengo reviento. Vos estás afuera, yo siempre aquí adentro. Mirá como comento en el crecimiento. Tengo la mente en blanco. ¿Qué hago? Ah, doble tempo.
Su mente está en blanco cuando tira un doble tempo.
Wow, qué buena rima ese chiquito. La mente en blanco pone ese pobre angelito. Lo blanco era la pantalla hace un ratito.